Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to SoulFood Poetry Night. Thank you to SoulFood Coffee House for hosting us, and thank you for making the choice to be here tonight. There's always a choice in life, and you've chosen to be here, so thank you for that. Tonight we're very privileged to have 4 readers who were published by Two Sylvia's Press, and I'll tell you a bit about them in a moment. I'm Michael Dillon Welch. I've been the Poet Laureate for the City of Redmond for a couple of years in the past, but that was a couple of years ago already. And I also help to run the Redmond Association of Spoken Word, and we have our monthly reading coming up a week from tomorrow over at Vala Art Center, so please come to that. And I also want to remind you about Poets in the Park, which is coming up July 15 at Anderson Park here in Redmond. And we have some cool things brewing for that, including a reading from the brand new Washington 129 anthology edited by our State Poet Laureate Todd Marshall, who will be there as well. And quite a few other surprises and some different things this year, so stay tuned for more information. To begin, I'd like to read a poem by Franz Wright. It's called Passing Scenes While Reading Basho. I am traveling by train to the city. I am traveling in brilliant sleep into the past. Meanwhile, composing a letter to my inner no one. There were hives at the edge of a wood. The mind shines in the window. The most beautiful house I ever died in. Everything's imaginary. When I hear the dawn gulls cry, even in New York, I long for New York. That is by Franz Wright. And the poem that he parodies at the end is Hearing the Cuckoos Cry, Even in Kyoto, I Long for Kyoto. And it's been parodied by many others in similar ways. If we had a Sammamish one, I'm not sure what we'd long for, or a Redmond one, or a Seattle one, or Issaquah. So if any of you have ideas for that, please share them later. We do have an open mic, and our open mic sign-up sheet is right down here. And if you've not signed it yet, please do. And if you have, you may have missed answering the question of the month. There's at least 2 of you who haven't answered it. And the question is, what is your favorite musical instrument? So please add that if you haven't already, and sign up anytime tonight. We'll be taking a break after our feature, so you can sign up then. So tonight we are featuring readers from Two Sylvia's Press. The press was founded in 2010 by Seattle area poets Kelly Russell Agadon and Annette Spalding Convey to publish poetry anthologies, memoir, creativity tools, and books that focus on the craft of writing. They have published individual poetry collections as well as anthologies, including women's poetry in Fire on Her Tongue, and a best-selling craft book, The Daily Poet, Day-by-Day Prompts for Your Writing Practice. Anybody have that book? A few of you. I highly recommend it. The others too. Two Sylvia's also offers online poetry retreats, book contests, and a contest for women poets over age 50. And you can visit them at twosylviaspress.com. And they produce beautiful books. And some of them are available for sale over here. We have 4 readers tonight, and our first is Natasha Money. She is a naturopathic doctor and writer. Her poetry, fiction, essays, and reviews have appeared in more than 55 journals, including Verse, Magma, Pank, Diagram, and Indiana Review. In 2014, Two Sylvia's published her first full-length collection, The Cardiologist's Daughter. Her website is natashamoni.com. Please welcome Natasha. Money.
Thank you. Thanks so much to Michael for having us here tonight. I always swore I would never be one of those jerks who came up with their computer, so here I am. I didn't know if I was going to make it tonight for a few reasons. One was I came down with food poisoning or something like that this weekend, and so I'm still recovering, so you will see me slip out at the break and go home to rest. And the other is, I don't know if you all heard about what happened downtown today, but I happened to be there right when all of that was going on, like literally on the street on First Ave with another woman, a young woman, and a small child. And we were walking down the street when a cop pulled up in a car and looked like he was about to run over the little 2-year-old whose hand I was holding because we weren't getting out of the street fast enough. And we had no idea what was going on at the time, just, knew it was something big enough that everything was surrounding us and streets were getting blocked off. So we took him into a toy store, which was where we were heading anyway, wondering if we were going to have to stay in there for a few hours or we'd be let out or what. And I started thinking, I wonder if I have any poems that have anything to do with, close encounters. And I don't. But I do have a poem with a toy store in it, which comes from my book, The Cardiologist's Daughter, which touches on themes of home. My father's from India, my mother's from Holland. I was born in the north in New Jersey, so it doesn't get more American than that, and raised in the South, so a lot of the book touches on the idea of where is home, who am I, identity. And then also it's called The Cardiologist's Daughter. My father is a cardiologist, my mother's an RN, and I am now a naturopath. So all those topics are touched on, but I want to read a poem from that Indian heritage tonight. And there will be a mention of auntie, and in our culture, pretty much everyone is auntie. So the woman who helped take care of me when I was little was not really an aunt, but she was a soon-to-be wife of a cousin, and she was living with us because we were sponsoring her from India. So that's who this poem is about, along with, you'll hear Janaki, but Janaki was my grandmother. In America, Auntie remembers Janaki while passing a toy store with stuffed snakes, felt tongues, and plastic eyes, nothing like where Janaki prays. Here, children worship animals from factories, bodies similar in smell, touch, no difference between monkey, tiger, or the lime green crocodile. Inhaling, Janaki wends her way to temple, her faith spread between golden and rat snakes, placed firmly in each viper's ability to puncture and spew. Children in New Jersey have no need for stillness. Their reptiles remain frozen in descent. Exhaling, Janaki calms her thought, body, does not fear the open window, does not fear the snake lying before the altar. I'm going to read one poem from my own medical exploration as a patient. I haven't had any recent encounters with antibiotics, but I know they used to overprescribe them a lot, especially for people like me who have a slight mitral valve prolapse. So every time I go to the dentist, I would get like thousands of milligrams of amoxicillin. And there was this one month where I think I saw the dentist like 3 times in 3 weeks. So I got a dose of 6,000 milligrams of amoxicillin in a very short time and started having some side effects. An exploration after 6,000 milligrams of amoxicillin. After she ate what felt like everything, she took to the taste of color and apologized only to the sun for not having noticed sooner how edible his yawns. Even the neighbor's crayons disappeared, 3 by 3 returning, little nubs with lip shine. Sometime after midnight, there were rumors. Someone had vamped Van Gogh, unrolled his starry night like billboard scroll, sending bicycles soaring, the road steering itself. And she went on, her sampler a sip from what once was church, now mosque, a tulip field, spilt stamen pistol. And when she was finished, her body thick with theft, her tongue cut on canvas, a train station needle, all color bled together, and she no longer hungry, belched canals, and she no longer thirsty, wept. The acupuncturist warns the cardiologist's daughter, Her heart has caught fire, has swelled to contain too much heat, has jostled her kidneys and failed them, 2 small pools cooling, her heart will not release. The acupuncturist suggests Asian pears, licorice tea, a village where volcano misses ocean, a swim where water, fire wed without smoke. The cardiologist's daughter shuts her eyes to roofs caving and flame, so much flame, her skull a crucible where heat overflows to heart. And she thinks she is her father, cardiologist, balancing more than blood, so many people simmering, reducing through her chambers. The acupuncturist spells her message in metal. Look, there are ways to warm, trace your path in water, rise. And I'm going to close with 2 poems from the manuscript I'm currently shopping around, which is called Sweetness Wasted, but instead of reading from the first 4 sections, I'll read from the section entitled Remembered Sugar. On the way to an undetermined westerly location, you pause on the eastern shore. The summer after the summer we graduated with degrees, you drove 3 states south to collect me from the 4th of July, and I had prepared some summer fruit, maybe nectarine, installed it in a crust with apricot, and you led me toward my own deck into the hazy blanket of night that keeps the crickets singing, those bugs with lanterns doing what they could to punctuate the sky, and you with your undeniable grin, a slice of something sweeter than what I could concoct. We were the bud and the branch and the westward leaning, the promise of continued continental shift. Suddenly, we aren't the ones in the photos with the trim hair sailing down a stretch in New Mexico. We didn't stop for the snake whose rattle had already been collected. We make coffee after we grind our own. Wish you were here on the permanent shuffle of our minds. Right now, in a government-compliant box, is a week's worth of drenched mail. And we regard this as sad, even though it's circulars we've yet to convince postal workers not to deposit into the metal, which barely closes but rusts. When asked about the other fish in our bowl, we surface breathless. What we really need is that timeshare camel, the one that spits. At the least, a lifetime supply of stamps. As far as everything returning, this is why I never cared for the wind. As far as who the other is, I signed a non-disclosure in my sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Next up, we have Michael Schmelzer. He is the author of Elegy Elk River from Floating Bridge Press in 2015 and of Blood Song from Two Sylvias last year. His debut full-length book, which was recently named as a finalist for the Julie Suk Award. I got that right? A Single Throat Opens, a collaborative exploration of addiction, is forthcoming from Black Lawrence Press. He lives in Seattle, and you can visit him online at michaelschmelzer.com. Come on up, Michael.
Well, thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much, Michael, for hosting, and SoulFoods, and everyone else. It's great to be here, and it's just nice that there are people that still enjoy coming to these things and listening and all that. So, because it's National Poetry Month, and because a friend of mine recently had her first chapbook accepted for publication, I'd actually like to start off by reading one of her poems in celebration. This is Self-Portrait as Grendel by Hannah Cohen. It was a good destruction, like mosquitoes in orbit around a citronella wick. When all the men died, I asked for more men until I'm happy again. I myself am half hell and half morning. I've an inheritance of oath after oath. Born some modern wanderer. This time I'm the one living. A new head, a different name, but still my skin. I don't know if you want less, that same hour in my bones. I'm going to read a piece that was recently published in Crab Creek Review. It's a great little journal. A bunch of Washington State poets have been published in it. A bunch of Washington State poets work in it. But they're having a reading as well tonight, which I wasn't able to make. So I thought I'd also pay tribute to them. So my body mourns limb by limb as I recount your final days, after the poet Kevin Young. Day 17. I can't unclench. I swing these fists by my side and wreck the wind as I walk. Day 45. My eye inflates your sunken flesh until your flesh surfaces on everyone. My familiarity and insolence is unrecognizable. I ask, who am I that begs to touch a stranger's cheek? Day 97. The feet offer their own confusion. The left steps, while the right remains a mausoleum. I dizzy the distance from point A to point A. Day 142. My tremulous voice. Grief, the smallest vibration, barely perceptible. Bantam in daily earthquakes, and yet it is the very earth that shakes. Day 170. I don't know what hunger is for or what to hunger for. You cannot give me any more anymore. Day 171. I chew on your wind-up clock while the alarm rings. And then now I'll start reading from Blood Song, in which, even though Two Sylvia's Press isn't here, I think we can all the authors here can say that they've been so good and so kind to us, and they've done a fantastic job with the book. So if you are a writer and you want a press to look at and buy from, I suggest Two Sylvia's Press. Even if it's not my book, feel free to ignore it and buy other books, but they're good people. Inherited music. Because gray clouds gorge on themselves, we intuitively know rain will be the byproduct. Below them, starving palominos stomp the fallow field. If you believe the stories my mother bequeathed, then you trust the shrinking skin. Against their further protruding ribs composes an eerie music, a lullaby with ominous lyrics. It explains why she so often crept to the barn and fell, asleep beside these creatures, while they stood lock-kneed and slumbering. Somewhere in their stomachs, a song you'd only sing at a child's funeral. I never heard it, nor did I hear my mother speak repeatedly about her mother dying, because I was deaf with youth. At home, she nearly faded into the beige sofa. A lit cigarette abandoned itself to ash. There's my mother, leaning into the frayed corner of a throw pillow, and I enter the room brashly, asking about dinner, singing a stupid song I just heard on the radio. So I'm reading a bunch of mom and dad poems, I guess you could call them. I've been thinking a lot on my childhood lately. My parents recently did some spring cleaning and brought me a bunch of these participation ribbons and all these things from elementary school up to college and stuff. And so I've been just kind of reminiscing about my past. So I'm going to go through some of the poems that touch on that. On the branch, a bird we bid goodbye. I boxed my father's vinyl and stored them in the bloated sun of Minnesota. I was an adolescent who mistook light for safety. It was the year I ran away. It learned warmth deforms what we hold dear. I returned 3 days later. 5 a.m. and the wrens chirped my arrival. Most mornings no one wakes up to welcome you with music. But when I opened the door, my father flew off the recliner, his expression warped from weeping. On the phonograph, my favorite tune warbled like a sick bird as I tried to mend the wrinkles on his face, like stems I carelessly snapped. This next poem, I owe kind of a debt of gratitude to a friend of mine who gave me the title as a prompt, and the title is Isaac Newton's Teeth. And so I had to come up with something for that. So it's kind of a surprise, both everything that happened here. So I'm just very grateful for my friend Andrew. Isaac Newton's Teeth. When I was young, I flicked my father's flimsy earlobes as if they were fat little bells, and I was happy. Then, one day, I stopped, or he left. I don't know enough about the order of things to say which came first. The smallest force creates a chain of events we shackle to the ankle of our futures. You've heard this too. The monarch's wings, delicate to the point of non-existence, breath by breath cause a microburst across the world. How much worse the damage then, caused by the whip tip of a finger, stinging and stinging a father. Our ignorance often accelerates us. So much of what we know of motion, propelled by what we don't know about impact. Newton was born 3 months after his father died. Everything, the scientist learns, amounts to a speck of black pepper reacting against his father's teeth, those small canvases of absence. The memory of glass. 1. When I speak of the sacred, I conjure the exact scarlet of a tanager, ruined by the windshield of an oncoming car. I contemplate the scar, immortalized in skin. I meditate on the mother, throwing a glass that shatters against her son's forearm and never stops breaking. 2. When the word mother tucks itself under my tongue, it is because I am scared of invoking sacrifice, of releasing those wings, flinching toward fire. And when I speak of fire, I mean blood rising out of wood, branches that blanch the darkness. When I was a child, I was haunted by shadows. With a flashlight, my mother shaped them into animals projected onto walls. Barking dog, timid rabbit, flying bird. She then eclipsed the bulb with her palm. Her skin glowed ruddy with blood. Only now do I understand light illumines the sacred. 3. The memory of glass is sand in searing lightning. The memory of the scar is blood released from the forearm of the sun, and the son remembers himself through infinite versions, down to the singular vision of a baby, not yet free of the womb. And the mother, what does she remember? Not a glass hurled upon the sun, but a crystalline bird diving toward a vulnerable, sacred creature she knew it could never hold on to. And I'm going to read one last poem. It's kind of an interesting space to be. I have 2 daughters, and so my parents visit every week, so still being in the place of being the son and also being a parent, so you get caught up in these kind of 2 worlds. And I always like to end with a poem about my kids, just to keep myself in perspective, I guess, and always keep them in my mind. Instruments only heard at night. What musician plays fearlessly into the void? Not one among the cluster of virtuosos who learned the scales so well they dreamt exclusively in song. Dearest instruments, when you were born, the world replaced sleep with sonatas, and I didn't realize how precious a note could be until it was played with the proper embouchure. I now believe in harmony the way Beethoven believed the applause he could not hear following the premiere of the Ninth Symphony. No sound undulated through the kazoo of his cochlea. He wept, betrayed by the ear. Do children hear us, chanting their names like a charm versus the deafness we ultimately become? We sing the minor key of existence. And when our final chord fades, may the audience in the auditorium clap wildly. May silence like a gong, hiding in the balcony, strike anyone who dares to stop. Thank you very much.
How old are your kids? 5 and 8. They're a handful, I'm sure. All right. Next up, we have Janine Hall-Gailey, who served. Actually, I was looking at this a second ago, and I survived as Redmond's second poet laureate. She's the author of 5 books of poetry. Is that still correct, or has it gone up to 6 yet? Okay. Becoming the villainess, she returns to the floating world, Unexplained Fevers, The Robot Scientist's Daughter, and Field Guide to the End of the World, which was the winner of the Moon City Book Prize. Her website is webish6.com. Please welcome Janine Hall-Gailey.
Thanks. Oh, yeah, I'm so short. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you to all the other readers and to Michael, who are all friends of mine. And I just love being back in Redmond. It feels like forever since I've read here, so thank you all. And I'm going to read one new poem and then a couple of poems from a couple of different books. And so has anybody noticed the weather being really strange lately? Crazy weather, right? So this is called Self-Portrait as a Weather Report. After that high-pressure system swept through, you gave way to flooding and severe storms. You couldn't push all the way to the East Coast, so you remained stymied in the plain states, spinning your wheels, losing steam. What began as whimsy, a tiny welt on the blue screen, barely meriting a name. You blew a hole in town after town, howling. You took on too much snow. You became a hurricane. You slept over in New Orleans, causing havoc. You rode into the panhandle low and wet. When will you cease your cycle of carnage and pain, sleep soundly overnight, ease up on the hysterics? When will you turn from tornado to rainbow, from snowpocalypse to springtime? We're tired of huddling against the wind in raincoats, blowing into our microphones, trying to track your erratics. Well, you know, it's been very hysterical weather lately, I think. So the next couple poems are from my newest book, Field Guide to the End of the World. And this book is all about apocalypses, so sort of the lighter side of the apocalypse. Although the first poem is not light, I apologize. This is called Introduction to Disaster Preparedness. While you told me about the bee colony collapse caused by cell phones or maybe Monsanto, I was thinking about a friend who said they found a lump, and another friend finishing chemo and waiting for a scan, and a third who said, my hair is a disaster, and she meant the layers would take forever to grow out. My house is a disaster, she says, my yard, my outfit. When you told me my son is autistic, I thought of his bright eyes and beautiful tears. It's not the life you planned. how our minds and bodies spin apart like hives of bees confused about whom to follow, flying further and further out to discover what? That they'd flown too far and now are frozen, flightless. How many hives abandoned? We cannot sleep too far from disaster zones. I saw a tornado once in my own front yard, slept through hurricanes, knelt during earthquakes. Did I pray? Did I ask for something then? I only held my breath. When later asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "Everything is temporary." So that's a little. My mother was actually, she had a job called disaster preparedness manager or something. I was like, how can you really prepare for disaster? Isn't it sort of an oxymoron? Anyway. So on that theme, this is called Lessons. Does anybody know Lessons in Emergency by Frank O'Hara? I sort of have a reference in here to that book. Yeah. He's a 60s poet. I really like him. This is called Lessons in Emergency. Learn to break glass, to take what you need with you when you go. Learn to tie shoes quickly, to find the emergency medications, the rations, the earthquake kit. Is it in your car that you feel safest? Your house? Are you one more Lois Lane with sand coming in the windows, trying to break the glass? Are you waiting for some Superman? Are you waiting because, in the strictest sense, what can you live without? Water, food, toilet paper, a toothbrush, your laptop, your cat, your husband, your little boy. You wait a second. What am I forgetting? Quick, the sirens are blaring. You shove your palms over your ears. Where do you take cover? Do you ever watch your landscape and wonder where it might collapse? Buildings, tunnels, forest groves, bridges. When you watch the earth tear apart like thin skin, you think briefly, everything is so fragile. In the end, you are still yourself. Yourself a little dustier, a little blood in your hair, maybe a little rattled. But why are you clutching the egg beater in your hand so tight, your fingers still touched with flour? You ask yourself, is now the time for cake? Frank O'Hara tells you to become a blonde, as religious as a profligate Frenchman. You slip his words into your pocket and run. I always liked Frank O'Hara. So this is all about, I've noticed lately some of our political officials do not like to take responsibility for their actions. I don't know if you've noticed this in the news. So this is called, But It Was an Accident. Yes, I was the one who left out the open petri dishes of polio and plague next to the plate of pasta. I leaked the nuclear codes, the ones on giant floppy disks from 1982. I fell asleep at the button. I ordered tacos and turned out the lights. How was I to know someone was waiting for the right time? I thought the radio was saying alien attack and headed for the fallout shelter, failing to feed the dogs. I followed evacuation plans. I just followed orders. I was the pilot of the bomber. I was the submarine captain. I steered into the iceberg. I held the scalpel, but I was shaking. I was the one in charge. I was the one on the red phone saying, "Do it," decisively. I always imagined writing propaganda. How could I possibly see what was coming when they dropped the flyers, when the angry mob started choking people in the street? I was always good at creating a panic. I never saw the Ferris wheel start its final roll. I looked away just as the plane plummeted, as the buildings burned. I shook my head at disaster, afraid to meet. It was just an accident. It was fate. It was never my hand on the wheel. When you point fingers, point them to the empty sky. Okay, I said this was a lighter book. I swear. So I don't write a lot of love poems. My poor husband, we've been married 23 years now, and I don't write nearly enough love poems. So I wrote one in this book. The last love poem. I am obsolete as my ancestors, the Appalachian glass blowers, provoking fire over and over to produce their artifacts. I knew no writing would survive when we started calling the children vectors, when our own forests grew heavy with toxic spores. A map, a list, a series of images, What could I write now that would do anything? A poem orphaned, a crystalline ornament with no Christmas in sight, swirled with delicate color, resting gently on a ledge till the inevitable smash. So here in my last moments, let me set down my memories of you. Your rough skin, your green eyes, your slightly clumsy hands. We turned and smiled at each other on the ugly concrete glinting with broken glass as someone yelled obscenities and somebody else handed out pizza slices to strangers. When we ran out of flour, we learned to bake cookies out of nuts, seeds, flowers. We decided, against all odds, to plant dahlias. Do you see this as a rebellion, that after all this, the poet clings stubborn to romance, to the idea that somehow a small connection, a tiny universe of fire and friction might be preserved? So, the next poem I'm going to read is from this book from Two Sylvia's Press called She Returns to the Floating World. And I brought two guests tonight, Dr. Ayako Ogawa and her husband Tadaki. And Dr. Ogawa helped me do the translations and the cultural references in this book. So, arigato. The Lost Limbs of Anime Girls in Space. Oh, and I should ask, are there any anime fans among us? Ghost in the Shell, Fullmetal Alchemist, and that stuff. So I have a couple of in-jokes in the poem. The Lost Limbs of Anime Girls in Space. Somehow, in these futuristic worlds, we have always left an arm and a leg behind, as if these amputations make us seem more accessible, a portion of our torsos beneath the torn top visible, a glimpse of shining silver. Our hair still charmingly tousled, we are victims of some civil war or village atrocity conveniently unwritten, forgotten, military campaigns hidden in our pasts. Only these reminders that we might not be entirely human, merely a ghost caught in a metal shell. She'll give you an arm and a leg, they joke, while we wake in the night to scratch phantom skin, the joint between flesh and machine always aching, our souls affixed in some permanent alchemy to this heavy metal. So, little anime shout out there. And then the last poem I'm going to read is for Fukushima. It's from my fourth book, The Robot Scientist's Daughter. This is called A Morning of Sunflowers for Fukushima. And something you have to know is one of the main radioactive contaminants in Fukushima is cesium, and they try to extract it by growing different plants. 200,000 sunflowers drink the cesium from the grounds of the temple, where they burn lanterns made from the names of the dead. This invisible snow, says the temple's monk, brings us a long winter. A village woman mourns the loss of her blueberries. In Chernobyl, they grew amaranthus, field mustard, sunflowers. But how to dispose of poisoned flowers in spring? We build lanterns, we plant seeds, we set things alight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janine. This is all going by too quickly. Next up, we have Molly Tenenbaum, and her books include Mytheria. Got that right? Okay. Maybe not quite. That's from Two Sylvia's Press. The Cupboard Artist, Now by a Thread, and the artist book, collaboration with artist Ellen Ziegler, Exercises to Free the Tongue. She is also a banjo player, and I think she has her banjo with her. And her banjo recordings are Instead of a Pony and Goose and Gander. She teaches at North Seattle College and Dusty Strings Music School, and her website is mollytenenbaum.com. Please welcome Molly and her banjo.
Hello. Thanks. I think I'll read maybe 3 poems and play 1 banjo tune, something like that. This book, Mytheria, but you can say it how you want, because it's a made-up word, so the precedent doesn't exist. Myth, theory, me, sounds like a disease. The basic idea is that your parents aren't exactly real people. They're these imaginary figures who live inside you. They might be real people to themselves, but not to you. So I'll read a mother poem, a father poem, and a kind of family all-together poem. That's basically what the book is. That'll give you the synopsis. The parents have a variety of qualities. My brittle mother. Eye of plate clatter, ear silver drop that hangs in the room of non-answers. Nose tapping thimble, lips the lost scratches of phone numbers. Breastbone of linen, neck needle's eye. Her carbon paper shoulders, her arms penciled signatures slanting off old letters. Wrist, a cracked waxy string, her glass beads all over the floor, bouncing into the corners. Breasts, ochred antimacassars. Her pleated tissue belly, her crotch past glasses, Bakelite and tortoiseshell. Her sea scroll thighs, her knees of char. Her ankles of fly bodies swept from the windowsills, fly bodies gathered from lamps' glass bowls, all strung together on celery thread. When she inches her weight, testing her breadcrumb foot, the crows dip and caw. I'm what happens when she tries a step, why I can't stand when she walks. That was my brittle mother. Now we have my soft father. Eats with a spoon no matter what. Eats in a fort in the corner, good nights every night of his childhood, to his parents' teeth looming in glasses each side of the sink. Some days his bones lift out and leave him below a puddle of parachute. Some days his daredevil bones laugh at him, leaping curbs on their bikes. Some days for containment, he wraps himself in a bandage. His sports, to mash the potatoes, roll down the green hills, mix slip for the pots. His rudder a snore, his sleep talk all vowel and gargle, to choke or wake up. Since he can't play piano or trumpet, can't play guitar or drum, he must play with the puppies on the rug in the plumps of the peonies. You can poke your finger in as far as it goes. You can hunt through the blankets. You can toast him till his chocolate gets all gooey. You can curl up in his belly, drowse in the swags of his velvety ink. You can nap on his thick rag paper. You can sleep on the pads laid out for you in each of his rooms, one cool and hushed in the hot afternoon, one beating beneath his plush heart. You can dream of buttons on sweaters, cashmere, cabled. He left them for you, folded in his dark drawers. This one's called The Flying Daughter, but it has everybody in it. You know, the weird thing about this book is my brother's not in it, but that's because, well, first of all, they're not real people in this book. That's one reason. And the other reason is he was born 10 years after me, so I had like 10 whole years as an only child. And then he showed up. And then he had 10 years as an only child, but it was after I had gone to college, so all different, all backwards. But the image at the end of this poem goes by really fast, because poems go by really fast when you're listening to them. So I'll just highlight it by saying you see it a lot this time of year, the birds flying by overhead, carrying all the little grasses and straw and little fluffs from the chair on your back porch and string from your garden. You see them kind of flying, and then with these dangling things for their nests. So, The Flying Daughter. The girl spooning batter on the black griddle, I think she was happy, watching for bubbles, flipped side smooth and shiny. Happy, or were they, the father and mother? One couldn't wake from his nap, the other so sorry for something. Go figure, we laughed all the time, saying people's names backwards or shouting, "Chili dog to go," through shushed doors of white napery restaurants. Again and again, they took me to weeping women with a handkerchief in the museum that smelled of the tar pits. We always stopped by the dead mastodon on the way home. Summers in redwoods, our game of counting banana slugs each morning trail to the bathroom. On all our journeys, Mom poured from a thermos whose cup was the cap upside down. The house with its glass doors slid open and breezed through the screen. We moved in our bodies and in our own ghosts, their layers sleeving our bodies, slept and woke, and one of us never dreamed, and another so many the day couldn't write them, every night's backlog a swollen bag over the bed. Ate our cereal, brushed our teeth, every day flew into air. Were we birds? Were we the poor, hungry beaks in the nests? Were we the glasses? Were we birds? Were we the poor, hungry beaks in the nests? Were we the grasses and webs born swinging over the houses? That's us. I see us down there, the grass-long shadows of ourselves, combing over ourselves, some dead and some living. I have this double life. That was one of them. Let no surface go undecorated. So people ask me a lot if there's a connection between my music and my poetry, and I don't know. Not my job to figure it out. I don't think this banjo really needs a mic because it's a small room and it's loud enough. So I'm just going to move this. I'll play you a tune, and thank you all for coming. Do stick around for the break to visit and look at books and say hello and enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Molly. I've thought of a poem to respond to the Basho and the Franz Wright variation. Hearing the espresso machine, even in Redmond, I long for Redmond. So let's take a short break. Please check out the books for sale over there. And there's food and drinks to check out as well if you haven't already gotten something to eat. If you'd like to sign up for our open mic, please do that. I know a couple of our readers need to leave, so I understand, like Michael, you're driving all the way to Spokane tonight. Well, safe driving. I think you need to leave soon then. And the rest of you, please stay as long as you can. We do have a few people on our open mic, and we'd love to have more if you'd like to sign up. So we'll take a few minutes of break right now. And again, thank you to Sylvia's Press readers.